All right, team players and fellow Giants fans. When we're thinking about the New York Giants, hooray, they made the playoffs this year. They even won a game. That is a lot to build on going into the offseason. And let me tell you, there's a lot to build on. We have a lot of up in the air decisions. We've got a lot of up in the air decisions in relation to the draft. We have a lot of up in the air decisions in relation to who am I going to sign in the offseason. And a lot of this is centered around the offense. Yes, the defense is mid. The defense needs to be healthy. But what we really need to look at, and what we're going to look at for a couple of minutes here, is the Giants' offense. Now, with Brian Daboll as the head coach, it is very clear that he's aware of the limitations of his players. It is very clear that he understands the talent, where his players' talent lies. And he tries his best to bring that out in his players. Now, when we think about the Giants moving forward, the one question in the room is, what do you do with Saquon Barkley? Do you sign him? Do you let him walk? What's happening there? Because Daniel Jones had flashes of, okay, he could be our guy. But Saquon Barkley's really your guy. So when you look at, okay, how do I make a team? Let's say Saquon stays and Daniel Jones walks. Say they both stay. How do you build a team around them? And the number one need of the New York Giants, in my mind at least, by looking at the Giants games, looking at the stats, is a physical wide receiver that stays healthy. They need a guy, they need a thumper. And we thought, hey, Wan'Dale Robinson might be the guy. Wan'Dale Robinson could be the guy. Let's see if he stays healthy next year. But in my book, and it's not the number one pick, it's not the first round pick, but I think that the Giants would benefit from having a physical wide receiver that a guy like Daniel Jones could rely on in the intermediate routes to make plays, because Daniel Jones needs confidence. Right now, he does not have the confidence to take the ball down the field. And for the Giants to get to the next level, to give Saquon space to run, because Saquon is electric when he has space to run. But if I know he's running, I can stop him. If we want him to have space, they need a physical threat. They need somebody that can get downfield and move the sticks. That's where I'm at, Joe. What are you thinking?
So I'm starting with a different spot here. Obviously, receivers a huge need. Quite frankly, medical staff might be their most number one need as the New York Giants. But Daniel Jones, as shown by the tape and the decisions of Daboll, is not their guy. When they went into the red zone, they ran more running back under center, wildcat, whatever terminology you want to use, on a percentage basis than any other team in the NFL. That to me is a very clear indicator. I don't want the ball in Daniel Jones's hands in tight windows. To me, once we're acknowledging that, that makes the number one need replacing Daniel Jones. And it might just take the adult in the room, now that I'm the new guy and I made the playoffs, now I have enough clout to do it. It's a fundamental fact. The man is limited. Is he ever going to be a top half quarterback? No. You can give him any receiving core in the NFL. You can give him Mike Evans. He's not throwing the ball downfield to him. Those passes do not get completed when Daniel Jones throws them. He tries them. It just doesn't work. So to me, the absolute number one need is a massive upgrade at the quarterback position. And Giants fans have been waiting forever to get a playoff win in the post-Eli era. Just give me someone who's consistent. Daniel Jones is not that answer. Despite the playoff win, Daniel Jones is not going to be able to consistently produce because of his limitations in decision making. Yes, he can scramble. Yes, he gets you those first downs in unconventional ways. It's much better with an offense mind of Daboll to be able to have consistent, planned proficiency. And every time he scrambles because he doesn't make his reactions soon enough, He's taking the skill set advantage that Daboll's bringing to the table off of the table. And therefore, to me, if we recognize the reason this team got so much better was A, Saquon staying healthy, and B, Brian Daboll, you have to give him Saquon again and let Daboll be right by having the quarterback that he wants. So, Bob, I want to kick it to you to see if A, that's something you agree with, and then look at the second half of what this team needs.
I would totally agree with that. Like I said, Daniel Jones as a passer, and like you said, is extremely limited. When we were looking at his stats over the course of the year, now granted, from a fantasy football perspective, Daniel Jones is perfectly acceptable because he gets the rushing yards, he gets rushing touchdowns. When we were looking at how many passing yards he gets a game, I don't believe that we saw that he went over 220 yards very much. And I don't believe he threw the ball more than like 22 times a game or something like that. Now, granted, if you've got a good running attack, you don't got to throw the ball in that way. And that's what the Giants have with Saquon Barkley and Daniel Jones. Now, like we said earlier, to get those Giants to the next level, they need a guy that is capable of completing all the passes on the field. Now, here's where I say maybe not this year on the quarterback. When you look at the history of young quarterbacks in New York, it's not good. And to me, at the very least, if I'm thinking in Brian Daboll mode, and I'm saying, okay, my number one priority here is Saquon Barkley, but if I go out there and I maybe trade up to get CJ Stroud or I trade up to get Bryce Young, I don't think that's the answer either because they don't have any weapons that are consistent and proficient enough to take pressure off of a young quarterback. And that's the mode that Daniel Jones is in right now, is that not only is he limited throwing the ball downfield, but he's not helping himself because his weapons are not good other than Saquon Barkley. They're average, but we're not looking for average when we've got. When was Daniel Jones drafted? He had, top 15 or something like that? Top 5, right? You've got Saquon Barkley, top 5. You have Kayvon Thibodeaux on defense, top 5. And you're looking at these guys and you're saying, we've won one playoff game, and then we got crushed by our division opponent where that should have been a game we should have been prepared for because we've already played them twice. They do not have talent. Zero. Outside of those really major players. Azeez Ojulari, Kayvon Thibodeaux, Saquon Barkley. You look at the rest of that team, and you could just pinpoint and pick people out and just replace them with somebody else from the Tennessee Titans. You could replace them with somebody else from the Oakland Raiders. It doesn't really matter. When you look at this game and when you look at how they've played, Brian Daboll coached the hell out of this team. Because this team was going nowhere and going nowhere fast. And this offseason, when you look at what they need to sign Saquon Barkley. They need to get a good medical staff. And they need to make sure that Kayvon Thibodeaux and Azeez Ojulari have help on the defense. When they can make moves on the defense, they can put pressure on the quarterback. That puts the ball back into the New York Giants running game, and that is where you want the ball. You want the ball in the running game, and when that happens, it's going to be lights out, and that's what you want from the New York Giants.
So to conclude that point, I want to point out a fact here. When Daboll drafted Josh Allen was the 5th quarterback that went in that draft. Daboll did not move up to get him. He waited and took him. So I think that there's still a possibility of that happening with the Giants having their pick as the team that made the second round of the playoffs. But to the position that would help the defense the most, I believe it would be an electric, hard hitting, strong safety. Because when we look at this team, the edges were the weak spot. And a rangy, strong safety that is physical and willing to drop his head in there to make the play is often the better selection than the middle linebacker because he also will give you support on those passing down plays
I'm
to
going to
help a
interrupt
pass
for a
defense that
minute.
could get exploded.
I'm going to interrupt for a minute. The Giants' linebacking core was a mishmash, hodgepodge of hot garbage this year. When Blake Martinez retired, they played, it felt like 10 linebackers. Now, I can't be guaranteed that that's a fact, but it felt like they played 10. They probably played 5, and they all did not do their job in the way that they needed to do their job. Now, that's me.
Well, that is correct, and I'm not fighting that. What I am saying is that from a structure of the defense position, you get more value out of having an elite strong safety than you do out of having an elite middle linebacker. The days of Ray Lewis dominating a game do not exist
San
in this
Francisco
NFL
would
anymore.
argue against that. San
San
Francisco would argue
Francisco is
against that.
probably the only one. So, with that being said, I really do think that if you're looking at a second round pick, or possibly even a day two guy at worst, I would look at the middle of that field via the secondary, upgrading the safety position. Again, looking primarily for a rangy, hard hitting guy. And you can never have enough speed at the wide receiver position in this modern NFL. Quite frankly, just having a healthy receiver is something that they haven't had all year. So
They haven't
the
had it in
question the
5
Giants
years.
have is, are any of the receivers they had this year capable of stepping up being good? They were just too injured to show it, or do you restart? It's one of the fascinating questions that the Giants have to answer. And I think that that's a 2-year solution because historically, what we see NFL teams do is have over faith in their injured player coming back stronger, despite the fact they want
New
him to come
Orleans
back so
Saints.
fast.
Oh, sorry, I got the New Orleans Saints stuck in my throat. Sorry about that.
I completely understand that. So, with that being said, the Giants cannot butcher the offseason nearly as bad as the Saints do. And we're going to let the chips fall as they may.